hello.
Cool. Hey, everybody. If you're still standing outside, make your way in. There's a few seats there in the middle, front area. Cool. This way. So, I think I'll just start, even though we're still sitting down. I'm just going to go. I'm going to go. We got to stay on track. Okay. So, welcome everybody to the Zero Knowledge Summit. You've made it all the way here. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. Yeah. So as you may or may not know, the Zero Knowledge Summit is presented by the Zero Knowledge Podcast, which I hope you're listening to. And if not, you can find us on the iTunes Store, etc. We're going to start off with a little bit of practical info about this event to help you out.
Yeah, so practical info, basics. The first and most important thing is Wi-Fi. There is Wi-Fi, and SSID is this. The password is snarks with 3 S's at the end. So hopefully you'll find that and it works. It seems to have worked decently in the past events, so hopefully it works well now too. We do have a Telegram group that relatively active, both like inside this event, but outside the event as well, and just generally. So please join it if you haven't already. There should be a link in the email invite that you received, but there's also a link to it from our Twitter profile. And there are amenities, so we'll be serving lunch, but there's coffee all day. There's plenty of coffee breaks, so you can socialize. And yeah, there'll be drinks in the evening until 8.
So I want to say a little something about the program this time. Last time we got some feedback about we had sort of programmed a little bit too much at the same time. And so this time we're going to have 2 stages and 2 breakouts. But you may have noticed there's an extra room. So there's actually going to be an extra room where you can, it's called the Whiteboarding Brainstorming room. I think we called it the Zero Knowledge room, the knowledge room. Something like that. So yeah, that is a room that's open. There's, I think, 2 flipboards and a whiteboard and a table, and that's a really good place if you want to do like a little unconference breakout session yourself. That would be a good place to do it. Please don't use that room for conference calls, or don't close the door and start just like working quietly. We want that to be open. Here is the program. So for the first session, we're going to all stay in this room, and then there's a break, and then we break out. There is the ZK-proof workshop that you should have also had an invite to apply to. That's like kind of a fixed block, and they're going to close the door on that one. Yeah, so if you are in that one, go find it. I don't know if it's sold out, but if not, maybe just knock on the door at the very beginning and see if they still have some room. This is the afternoon. So I just realized something. We didn't actually introduce ourselves. I'm Anna.
Good to do.
Yeah, maybe we do this.
My name is Fredrik.
Yeah, this is Fredrik. I'm Anna, and we have the Zero Knowledge Podcast. And we take this opportunity every time to share a little bit of a recap, or just talk a little bit about where, how far we've come, what we're doing, that kind of stuff. Yeah,
so it's been a long project. I mean, it started out as a hobby thing, and it still is to some degree, but we have 69 episodes and counting. And we managed to ship an episode every week of all of 2018, and so far doing well in 2019 as well. So went better than expected, I think, switching to a weekly.
I remember that seeming totally impossible. And you're like, let's do it every week, and I'm like, what? That's crazy.
And we've gotten better, I think. I mean, we've upgraded our gear over the years and upgraded our technique and our editing, and we've gotten some dedicated sound engineering support from Henrik in the back there. So I think quality is hopefully increasing. You can notice it, but
thanks.
We like to highlight the most listened to episodes. Sorry. And they've more or less all switched around from the last event, except the intro to Snarks. And it's kind of interesting to see how this evolves. So I think we've gotten more and more into actual zero knowledge topics and research and cryptography, which is interesting, but we also still see a lot of popularity just from general blockchain and decentralized web topics.
So what is your favorite episode so far? Can you say?
I still like sitting down talking to Zuko about Zcash. So that episode, as we shipped it, I think was an hour, 15 minutes or something like that. We probably sat down and talked with him for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
He's so fun to talk to, so that's definitely my favorite.
I think mine may have been a recent one, this XDI episode. I think that's a really interesting project, and it was fun to have Igor and Austin on. Oh. There's some fans in the back, huh? Cool. All right, so I want to share a little bit about what we have next coming up for the Zero Knowledge podcast. So our plan is to do more and even maybe bigger events. We want to do more videos. So we did a few interviews and we did some live streams. We have a YouTube channel. Who knew? Anyway, we're thinking of doing more. And we're always, I'd say like we've now gotten to a point where we can look for partners and sponsors to start working with us. We try to keep it to like one sponsor per episode, but if there's anyone in the audience who'd be interested, this would be probably a good time to connect with us about that. We also have this project that some of you know, and some of you are in this group. We have another Telegram group called the Study Club, and this started out of just like an interest in learning more about Starks. I thought like, oh, I want to find like 8 people to like learn about Starks with me, and it's grown into like an entity. Matthew, who's the kind of co-admin and co-coordinator, oh, he's right there. If you're not in this group and you're interested, please get in touch with Matthew or myself. We'll give you an invite to the Telegram group. And we try to do like bi-monthly hangouts where we talk about a paper or a video or some concept. It's not really a presentation per se, it's more like a study club, like the name.
I wish I had more time to spend in that group.
There you go.
So yeah, about this event, it is the 3rd edition, and we're trying to focus in this event on specifically like zero knowledge, Snark, Stark topics, and specifically around scaling. So as you may or may not know, there is this exponential speed up in verification over proof generation when it comes to Snarks and Starks. So they have pretty interesting scaling properties. And hopefully we can kick that off with a talk that's right after this.
So in the application form, you may have noticed we asked a question. We asked the question, how would you explain the trusted setup to a friend? And we got a lot of interesting answers. It's not always the easiest to explain, and we're going to share a couple of these with you now. Here's one.
So yeah, nuclear waste that makes you glow. Maybe, yeah.
Just listen to the Radiolab podcast episode, haha. That was nice as podcasters to receive that one.
When you move into a new house, do you change the locks? What if the locks can't be changed? I didn't really understand this one. To me, it's more like if you construct a house and want the house to never be opened, how do you make sure that you throw away the keys correctly? But
if at least one of us is honest, we are both okay.
A good friend ceremony.
Crypto party for ice breaking.
It would be a funny icebreaker, the long party though.
I promise I will think of something funny later. This person was clearly at the last event and knew that this might be happening.
We cast a spell to prevent lying about money. You can only lie if you know all the magic words. That's pretty accurate. That's a bad one.
You participate in a communal ritual in which a wizard instructs you what to do. You might be able to get a YouTube video out of it blowtorching your hardware. I thought that was a good one.
That awkward thing that Starks don't need.
NPC for starters.
So this one is actually pretty good. Many people come together to create a secret that will be revealed to none of the individuals. The only way it can be compromised is if all the people collaborate and thereby compromise it.
And to the question, how would you explain trusted setup to a friend? Someone wrote, I just wish it was gone and I did not have to. I like that one. Cool. So thanks again for those answers. There were some really, really long ones that are interesting. Maybe we should find a place to share some of these.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Doesn't fit on a slide.
Doesn't fit on a slide, but anyway, cool. So we want to say thank you to some of our supporters who've helped make this event possible. We want to especially thank our sponsors, NewCipher, Trail of Bits, Parity, Web3 Foundation,
StarkWare, POA, 1KX, I think all of them are in the audience. And we also have drink sponsorship by the Zcash Foundation and Private Storage.
Yes. I want to say thank you to the programming committee. This is kind of the first time we did this, but we grabbed a couple people from the community to actually help when we got these applications. Oh yeah, that's maybe something to note. The entire program came from applications, so this was very much a community-driven programming effort. I want to say thank you to Lucas, Jacob, and you, and Barry Whitehat, who I don't think is going to make it, but I want to say thank you to all you guys. I definitely, appreciated the help, and I think it's a better program because you were there.
And I think we have to especially thank Anna. She's done 99.9% of the work with all of this.
Oh, thanks. That's very nice of you to say, but there is a group of people who've also helped. I want to say thank you to Balash and to Lorenzo and to Raul, who's downstairs, and to you, and to Henrik, who's doing the videos. Yeah, cool. Okay. Now we can start into the program. Maybe I sort of mentioned this just before, so we're going to stay here for the next half hour, then we have a break, and then you can see all of the sessions sort of start to happen in parallel. And I think this is just the end. This is the Wi-Fi. You have posters around. You also have this schedule posted around if you need to find it. And like we just mentioned, if you want to get into that Telegram chat, or if you want to just follow us on Twitter, this is our Twitter handle. Oh, actually, it's wrong. Zero Knowledge FM. I'll fix that after. Okay, cool.
All right. And I want to introduce our first speaker, Avihu Levy, to talk about scalability first with Starks.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Hey. Just making sure that you can hear me well. Can you hear me? Great, even works. Hi everyone, my name is Avihu Levy. I'm head of product at StarkWare. Here's a picture of me, few kilos less. I have with me here today my colleague, Michael Ryabzev, he's a co-founder and chief architect in StarkWare. He's also one of the co-inventors of Starks. StarkWare include currently around 20 team members, most of them are R&D. We're based in Israel. We plan to release our first product together with 0x. It's going to be a decentralized exchange scalability engine. We have our alpha for this product coming in mid-April on testnet on Ethereum. To this date, we raised $40 million in funding into equity rounds and a very generous grant from the Ethereum Foundation. Okay, so back in 2017 when we started, there were several projects dealing with zero-knowledge proofs. They were all targeting privacy. When someone heard the term ZKP or zero-knowledge proofs, they always had in mind privacy. And what we realized when we entered this space is that, well, Starks can solve privacy, but they are a great candidate, the best candidate to solve scalability. And I want to say this, we have a very deep understanding of the alternatives. We have in our co-founders, we have people who co-invent several proof systems, so we understand very well the alternatives, Starks included. But we think that currently the best proof system to solve scalability is actually Starks. Now, what makes Starks and few other proof systems fit to solve scalability? So, what one would expect is that if you have a computation and then you grow this computation by a factor of 10,000, then it's a very nice property if you get both the proof size and the verifier running time to grow, but not by much. So this is the first two that you see here. You would expect that the proof will grow exponentially smaller when compared to the computation, and the same goes with the verifier complexity. You also want that you will be able to prove very large statement, right? Because this is how you're going to use that for scalability. So that means that you want your prover to be as close to linear as possible so that you will be able to handle with even large statements or large circuits. And the last property that is of interest is that you want to be able to prove any kind of computation or any statement, that you don't want to be limited to some specific primitives. We have two more bonuses on top of that in Stark. The first one, as you probably know, there is no toxic waste. That means that there is no trusted setup. Now, trusted setup, they mentioned earlier what people think of that. It's not very good. There is also a practical problem where you have to regenerate the trusted setup every time you have a new circuit. Now, I know that there is this new construction that deals with it and plan to have a trusted setup per size of circuit, but it has its own drawbacks. And in Starks, you have no trusted setup at all. The other nice bonus that we've got is that we rely on lean cryptography. The first thing that comes from here is that Starks are actually post-quantum secure, but there are a few more gains that we get from that. For example, when we came to implement our verifier smart contract on Ethereum, we didn't use any precompiles because our cryptography or the cryptography inside Starks is so simple that we would go away just with simple prime field operation and hash function, and we need no elliptic cryptography, and we need no number theoretical cryptography, so it was rather easy and not very expensive to generate this verifier in a comparable very short time. I want to start by giving an overview of how a Stark scalability engine looks like, and then I will dive to a specific example. So what's happened normally before this mechanism today is that users normally send transactions on-chain directly to the dApp contract. The transaction normally includes something like, I'm the user, please authorize me, and then I want to change the state from A to B. And what the smart contract will do, what the dApp smart contract will do, it will verify that the user is authorized, it will verify that the previous state is indeed A, and that the state after transition is B, and that the state transition is valid, in general. So what we propose is a different mechanism where we introduce this new entity, prover node, and it works the following. You have any off-chain mechanism, it can be users, it can be relayers on top of 0x, and they generate transactions. Now, instead of sending those transactions directly to the dApp contract, they're going to send it first to the prover node. The prover node is going to collect them and generate a batch of those transactions, and then is going to generate a single proof that testifies for the validity of each and every transaction in the batch. This single proof is going to be presented to the on-chain verifier smart contract, which, if verifies that the proof is correct, and then it can submit a Merkle root of the new state to the smart contract of the dApp. So instead of having number of operation which is linearly related to the number of transactions that goes on chain, we now have a single proof no matter how many transactions are included in it, and this single proof takes almost the same time to verify whether it's 1,000 transactions or 10,000 transactions. So this is what gives the scalability. When you go to the specific case of Stark DEX, what you see here, the DEX can be a relayer. This relayer sends normally settlements to DEX contract, can be 0x contract, for example. And those settlements are very expensive to verify on-chain because they include several storage operations, they include several signatures, you have to send the signatures. So in total, one settlement will cost about 150,000 gas when performed on-chain. What one will do with the StarkDex instead is that settlements will go to the prover node. The prover node will collect them to a batch, and then for each and every settlement, he will prove the necessary condition for this settlement to be valid. So he will prove that users' signatures, both from the maker and the taker side, are valid. He will prove that every side in the settlement had sufficient balance before the settlement to whatever tokens they're mentioning there, that are mentioned there, that he changed the state correctly. For that, he's using a Merkle tree of the accounts. So the user basically proves that if he has a batch of settlements, for all the settlements, you've seen valid signatures from both maker and taker, and that the state transition is correct, and state transition is represented by the state of the Merkle tree that contains the account balances. Then he generates a single proof that attests to this batch, and send this to the verifier contract. The verifier contract, if the proof is valid, going to present the DEX contract with a new Merkle root that commit to the new state of the accounts in this exchange. When you look on, the most important parameter to look on in scalability system, the one that you expect to find, is that the amortized gas cost per transaction goes down to 0 when the number of transactions in a batch grows. So we can see nicely, I will explain in a moment, but we can see nicely that this property preserved in Stark's really nice. What you see here is results from our verifier contract on Ethereum. It goes from 128 transactions in a batch to more than 8,000. And for 8,000 transactions in a batch, the cost per trade or per settlement is about 800 gas, which is 200 times less than what you would get if you will settle the trades on Ethereum directly. A trade here, just to explain what a trade means, so a trade here is 256 Pedersen hash, more or less. I'm mentioning that because I want to differ it from payments, where the payment case is simpler, especially because you have just one side paying to the other and not two sides exchanging tokens. And also you could have payment for a single token. Here you are dealing with many, many tokens. So the factor, if you want to compare this to payments, the factor here is between 3 and 4 with the complexity. What about the total verification cost of the proof? So what you just see is the amortized cost per transaction. What you see here is that the total cost to verify the proof on chain was well below the block limit for any size of batch that presented here. We have few challenges. The first one is the one of data availability. Now, I'm sure that almost everyone who sits in this room, they know that data availability is a problem for many layer 2 solutions on Ethereum. The one approach that is possible is to put the data on chain. This will solve the data availability problem, but it also introduces a linear cost on main chain. We do have several other ideas that we are testing at the moment to introduce a cheaper construction that provides data availability as well. The second challenge is the one of censorship. So here there are a few approaches that we could go. We can, and we plan in the future to add privacy on top of that. So if the prover doesn't know what's the data in the transactions being proven, then it's hard for him to censorship because he don't know based on what to censor. The other way to go with it is to have the data being committed before and then have the prover forced to prove the data that was committed by user previously. And of course, there is the possibility that one goes with not just a single prover, but with a network of provers, and then apply some consensus mechanism on top of that. We also plan further reduce both in Stark prover complexity off-chain, which you already saw that is able to handle 8,000 transactions, but I'm sure this number will go even better, and reducing the Stark verifier gas cost on-chain. I want to finish with this slide. So we're now able to verify on-chain 8,000 trades in a block, which is 20 times more than what we presented just 6 weeks ago in Stanford. And this is also 200 times better scale than what Ethereum is able to do today. And we're just getting started. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer questions on this.
Any questions?
Hi, hello, this is Antonio from Brave.
Hi.
So the question I have for you is, with respect to your prover time, did you make some tests on energy consumption?
On?
Energy consumption?
Yes, we will provide more concrete numbers later, but those proofs were all generated on Amazon AWS machines that everyone can access without GPUs. So.
So I also have a question regarding the prover time. You said it's quasi-linear, but what are the hidden constants that you currently have?
Okay, great question. So in both Starks and Snarks, you have two main parts. You have the FFT part, which is done, depends, on Starks it's multiple FFTs on size which is smaller than the size of the circuit, multiplied by some factor. So there is the FFT part. And then there is the linear part with a constant factor that in Starks is a Merkle tree and in Snarks is the multi-exponentiation. So the FFT part, although it's quasi-linear, in fact it has good constants to it, especially for us where we are able to choose whatever field we want to work on, so we can very well optimize the operations there. We can choose a very convenient field and then work on top of it. For example, we don't have to choose field which is of the size of that relate to the security parameter. That has to be 256 bits. We can work with a smaller field, and also we could choose fields where some specific operations there are cheaper because we are not bound to any elliptic curve cryptography and to specific curve. The other part, if you compare the linear part, so we have a Merkle tree, which is linear number of hash operations, and in Snarks you have multi-exponentiations where you can look at it as linear number of multiplication on the curve. So there is like a factor of, I don't know exactly, but if you compare Blake to multiplication on elliptic curve, I think there is a factor of 100 there. I don't know the exact number of what's there today in Snarks, but I guess this is it. So I hope that answered the question.
Can you give a concrete example of a time, like for this example, of what would the proof generation time be for 8,000 trades in a block?
Yeah, I don't know all the numbers for this graph, but I could say that, for example, the 2048 transaction, we computed in less than 20 minutes, I think.
Any other questions in the back?
Your rate of speed up is really impressive. How particular are those speed ups to a particular like decentralized exchange protocol, or are they more general?
So I guess that the question was on the gas per transaction?
On the prover time.
Prover time compared to?
If the proving time is related to any particular design of a decentralized exchange, or if it's generic to anyone.
Okay, so the prover time here, the statement here is related to a certain number of, most of the work here is to prove chain of Peterson hashes. You could use this construction not just for decentralized exchange, but for example, for any payment system or to save any state update in general. So the numbers here can be easily compared to others if you just remember that the leading factor here is the number of Peterson hashes. And so, for example, if I take 8,000, so 8,000 is about 2 million Peterson hash. You could compare it to other systems. I don't think that other systems currently get to these sizes, but at least the far that I know. Also because if you look on snarks on Ethereum, I think that the maximum number that currently can be reached because of the precompile is something like 512 Peterson hash if I move to R1CS. So it's pretty hard to compare at the moment. Does it answer the question?
So with ZK snarks, there is a limit on the size of the circuits that you can construct based on the underlying elliptic curve used in the proof system. Is there such a limit with the Stark setup as well? So like what is the largest size of a circuit that you can currently process?
So that's a very good question. I mentioned earlier that both snarks and Starks has FFT in them. So they both, if you want to compute FFT efficiently, you need to have a multiplicative group of some high order of some prime. Most of it, we just use 2 at the moment, but we could choose other. Now, we don't have constraints when choosing the field, so we don't have to, if we want to find such a field, we can just go and choose prime that have that feature. We don't need to do anything else. Whether in snarks, if you start opposite, you want to find a curve that has nice pairing properties, and then you are looking from all the curves that you found, what is the field that you can build on top of them that will be most convenient. So in this, to answer directly to your questions, we could choose a field of any size that we want, and we can play with the parameters as long as they give us large enough multiplicative group. We could do that, yeah. Sorry? This has no effect on the No, actually here we used, we didn't, it's not even optimized to field sizes yet, right, Michael? I think. Yeah.
Yeah, just a curious question about the gas cost, because there you have something going from 5 million to up to like 6. Right now it's very hard to get these transactions on through mainnet.
So actually this is not true. I myself ran several tests where I sent much larger than, larger transactions than those on mainnet in several times of the day with several costs, and they always get included within less than a minute. So within less than 30 seconds, to be honest.
It starts getting problematic if you want to fill up every block with a
which
large
is not
transaction.
our intention. It will be this problem with any number that we presented here. So this is why I feel convenient to say it, because if you look on those numbers, 1 second, sorry. If you look on those numbers, the number that we put here for Ethereum are assuming that the blocks are full. So if you want to compare apples to apples, you have to assume that all blocks are full. We are not planning to fulfill all blocks. In fact, we are going to keep our gas consumption of the entire network probably below 5%, so it's not going to affect the network. Just, yeah.
There's also a secondary problem of, which is like Barry with Rollup talks about a lot, is how do you fill up a block optimally, right? That's a general knapsack problem that you can't really solve in how you pick transactions to include in a block. And you don't want to introduce that algorithm solving time in choosing a block because that delays the miners, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a pretty complicated topic, but it's not necessarily a problem of, you know, filling up blocks. Yeah.
As you guys have been working on optimizing and you get these speedups, have you been pinning the security parameters in your Stark construction, or are you still tweaking this as well?
So those numbers are with pinned security parameter of 80, so 80 bits of security, but we could go to 100 or more, depends on our decision, and it won't affect much the numbers here.
We have time for one more question before we head off to coffee.
Thanks for your talk. Coming back to the graph you had earlier, I guess in verification, your gas cost is going to be, some of it is going to be pushing the trades to the chain, so paying for data, and the rest going to be computation for verifying the proof. Do you have a breakdown on how much is paid on data and how much is paid on computation?
Yeah, I will give more detailed explanation now. So the number that you see here is a double cost to send the proof and to verify it on chain. It doesn't include the data. Now currently we are not putting the data on chain, but even if we would probably include the data on a separate block. Because if you already put the data on chain, you don't need it to be mentioned together with the proof. You could first put the data and then relate to this data in your proof later, for example, to a hash of this data. Most of the cost here, like I think something like 80% of the cost that you see is related to sending the proof. Now, I think that the Ethereum community now understand that actually the most expensive part in Ethereum is in fact the storage for the smart contract and not the transmission of the network. And so there is a plan to reduce transmission cost when compared to storage operation, so that storage operation will be more expensive and relate to transmission. If this will be the case, for example, by raising together with the same factor both the block gas limit and the storage, then what you would get for us, because we are paying mainly for transmission and almost nothing for storage, you would get that Stark proofs will become even cheaper with time on Ethereum.
All right, let's thank Avihu again.
Thank you.